Well, the results of the immediate session didn't really show that, but there are a lot of reasons, but that's again behind us. But we got to look ahead as you're talking about. Let me ask you, give you a softball question.
Sure.
Do you think Western University and Marshall University should meet annually on the gridiron?
Oh, I think they should play, absolutely. I don't have a problem with that. What I do have is I don't think it's the legislature or the governor's duty, truthfully, to do that. I mean, you can.
What if you have a school like you have the Security Council of the UN? One person say, "I don't want to do it." It doesn't get done, even in the light of overwhelming support of the public and the people who pay their bills. That it be done. Now, how far will you go in using the bully pulpit or whatever to bring this about? This may be minor in the big picture, but in terms of what the people of this state are asked to do, they're asking for that. So why not respond to something that people want?
But we truly do got capable athletic directors of both institutions, and I'm confident that now that they've both, particularly with the new AD up in Morgantown that's got his feet on the ground, it's time for them to start meeting and come up with something. I suspect that you will see a package come back out of that, but is it the governor's role, truthfully, I mean, I don't have the ability as a governor to issue
I'll tell you frankly, it isn't going to happen unless there is the bully pulpit. I'm not saying pass a law or even lock them in a room like Joe Manchin did, but you ought to be able to use your persuasive powers. I don't think you ought to mandate it, but this isn't going to happen unless I know the new AD up there. I've talked with him. They don't want to play. But it shouldn't be that shouldn't be the final answer in terms of if one person doesn't want to dance, we won't dance.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that impression to date. Perhaps you've had a more in-depth discussion.
Well,
he indicated to me, at least, that he's open-minded. He's waiting to get his feet on the ground, and then they'll start those discussions. So.
I'm getting different signals, but I'm willing to wait and hope it works. I hope it does. You don't have to do so. What I'm saying, in many states where you have two Division I schools, the state has eventually made it happen.
Sure.
Now, I'm just asking you if what if this AD that you think is very open-minded does not, because it's really their call. Their call. They can have any configuration they want, and they know in the end. I don't think Marshall will ever consider a 3-for-1, but there can be some configurations about a long-term schedule. But somebody has to say, look, I don't care how you guys do it, but I want you to do it because it's for the people of our state. They pay the dollars, and they want this. The last poll I said 68% of the people are in favor of that.
Yeah. And I would agree, and I encourage them to keep playing, and I would sit down and use my persuasive abilities to get them together.
Including the bully pulpit?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I just want to get that out because you're down here in this part of the world, and it isn't the end of the world, but it's nothing for...
It's important. It's a financial...
It's a bonanza. Money all stays in the state, and whether it's we become the biggest city in West Virginia when we play once a year down here, or every 3 years, and up there we fill up the stadium, and all these people spend their money at hotels and restaurants along 79, I guess, going up that way. But anyway, we have a couple other things I want to ask you before you go. What's your position on mountaintop coal removal?
I think it's a necessary evil in the short term. I don't think it's something that's going to last forever. I think in the meantime, while they're doing it, I think you need to enforce the Clean Water Act. I think it needs to be enforced. I think that the blasting regulations need to be enforced, and I think that it needs to be enforced so that the water is, particularly the water, is preserved and the surrounding areas are preserved. But in many instances, Bobby, there are areas of the counties that really don't have any other economic viable industry in their backyard in the short term. So until there's some other opportunity for them to get to that coal in that ground, I'm not sure that there's any other method of doing it.
Well, not every study that's been made shows that for every dollar that is spent on wages and everything else and taxes, the state pays $4 down the road on chronic illness, death, cancer, children deformed, and also the...
But, a lot of that has to do with the water quality.
Exactly.
And I've been down to Printer. I went down there about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago and spent a weekend down there. And
I read the article.
And visited those areas in Printer and some of the other Printer Hollow and some of those places.
I was raised in that area, so I know exactly
what's the slurry that's been injected underground and that's why I introduced it.
But the problem, nothing's being done. And it's a shame when the federal government has to come in here and take the hand of the coal industry and state government says, these are rules that are reasonable. You need to at least obey these rules. They don't even obey those rules. Yep. And we have a state that basically is owned by the coal industry. And the environmentalists, and I consider myself one, and I think to the extent you are, but
I believe in clean water. We all drink it. I don't want to glow in the dark.
There is a federal law that the EPA has to administer, that Congress passed, to ensure that our drinking water is clean. But we have the governor of West Virginia and the state legislature suing the EPA to take away their authority to do that. Now, is that the kind of policy that you support?
No, I don't see. The legislature hasn't joined in any lawsuit. The governor.
There's nobody in the legislature that, they passed making coal the issue. They passed unanimous resolution supporting coal.
Yeah,
very few.
Production of coal, but we also supported, if you recollect, we also passed legislation requiring studies of the coal slurry. We required that to be done. In fact, we're going to require it be done again because if you recall, the ultimate results of that study were inconclusive. And it troubled me a great deal that after 2 years of study and hemming and hawing and getting around to doing it through the DEP, it came back and said it was inconclusive. Then it passed the ball over to the Department of Health and sent it up for some studies, and they studied 2 or 3 areas of the concerning coal slurry, but to see if there was a problem. But the exact area, which was Printer, which led to the study in the first place, was ignored.
Well,
so
it's the same old. You're going to get the study that you pay for. We have a problem in this state in that the coal industry has predominated almost since the mid-1800s. They have such a grip on the legislature. I saw your chairman of the is it still natural resources or is it energy, blah, blah. Here's a guy that comes from a coal county, and these guys know they can't win unless they support coal. But there ought to be some reasonable standard when the very people that you're asking to vote for you are dying through the things that, well, we've got to have jobs at any cost. Yeah. We just don't have anybody in state government that's willing to say, look, boys, here's a line in the sand. We're not going to put you out of business, but you're going to have to go by these rules, which everybody around the country, the others seem to comply with. That's the problem.
We will have a Department of Environmental Protection. Its number one goal is protect the environment, protect the people, period.
Well, do you agree that isn't being done now?
I don't think it's being done nearly as well as it needs to be done, and I think it's being ignored. And I saw that particularly with the Printer study, because I think that study came back, and it was a hand-picked study that came out with a solution they wanted, and I rolled my eyes when I saw it, and it irritated me and aggravated me, and that's why I went down a couple of weeks ago to see for myself. And when I walked down those hollow, and I walked down the road going into that one community, and they looked around, and the guy said he had a brain tumor, and he was one of 7 people in that community, small little area of community you could throw a stone around and hit in the middle, and 7 of them and 5 of them had died.
There's
something wrong.
Story after story after story, but nobody listens. Nobody does anything. These people have to collect money and go sue on their own. You have a state government, you have a department that really aids and abets the very crimes that are being perpetrated. That's my problem. Yeah. Let me ask you something else, though, sure. Because I just want to make that point. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but it's a part of public policy making, and you may be the one calling the shots here in another few months. Anyway, there's a very strong activist, a retired professor at Marshall. Her name is Eleanor Taylor, who spoke to you recently, I think, when you were here, about an article she read about thermal energy that has great potential, particularly in West Virginia. Sure. Do you see that as one of the things that ought to be looked at? Because we're not going to have coal forever. We need to start looking at doing some transition to not only that, but other forms of energy.
Alternative energies, conservation, alternative energies all come into the mix. But you know as well as I do, in the short term, Bobby, at least in the short term and for the next 20 years or so, I mean, you're going to be looking at carbon fuels. There is not enough. I mean, no one's going to want a nuclear power plant. You saw what happened in Japan, and I just don't see, there haven't been a nuclear power plant built in this country in 15 years or so, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think that's a solution. But to meet the baseload energy needs, you're going to need the coal, and it can be done in a more clean fashion. I mean, I've been around coal. I grew up in coal country, too, and got the largest deep mine in the state.
In your area. Exactly. And they've had some accidents up there. It's really
they
severe.
really haven't had the measure of accidents that you've seen where there have been fatalities that on the scale that we've seen in other areas of the state. I will say this, that I'm proud that I think that Consol Coal particularly puts safety first, and that we have not seen the type of large-scale fatality and accidents that we've seen in other areas of the state.
Well, I just want to get you basically talking to the audience here, because because it isn't all coal here. It is clean air, clean water, and health of young people for the future. And so
those are some of our greatest natural resources that we have. Number one is our water supply.
Let me ask you, I got to just have a little bit of time
Sure.
left, but back in 2005, maybe earlier, the Secretary of State went into a contract with a computer company to provide electronic voting devices for West Virginia, which included the maintenance. That company, I think it's ES and something, I forget the exact, but they almost had a corner on the market. They also were very much involved politically with the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. I think, I'm not jumping on Betty Ireland, but she may have been the Secretary of State when that happened. But there have been a bunch of complaints about these devices not even getting the correct returns, plus having a sole source contract allows them to dig the price any way they want. What's your view about this whole arrangement since it's coming up for renewal?
Well, I think it needs to be something that's publicly bid. Obviously, it needs to be fair, and we need to have an open market of competitive bids and reach the best product that can do it with the most integrity, and that's the focus that we need to look at is the integrity of the system so that every man and every woman that walks in that booth that casts their vote will have it counted and counted accurately.
Yeah, well, there's some question about that now in several counties. Not only that, but right now as we speak, the sole source is being negotiated, so it may not be a public bid.
That would be my position is the way we should handle that is through a public bid with a public
transparency. Finally, Senator Kessler, if people want to make a contribution, get in touch with you, give them your
JeffKessler4Governor.com, JeffKessler4Governor.com. It's on the website. Got my platform, my issues, and how to volunteer, support, and stay in touch.
Okay, folks, we've been talking about Acting Senate President Jeff Kessler, who's running for the Democratic nomination for governor in the May 14th primary. Glad to have you with us today, and good luck.
I'll be happy to be here. Thank you much.